Good morning. What's up? Will Swift or Zamir start next year? I'm not sure about game one, but Zamir will be the starter at some point next year. Game day's at Penn State. Could be a good day for Georgia today. Even though Georgia doesn't play, if Penn State loses, Georgia will move up in the AP poll. And if Notre Dame beats Southern Cal, that makes our win against Notre Dame look better. I don't think Penn State loses today, though. I talked about this some during the week. I think Penn State wins today at home against Michigan, but I can't see them winning all three of these next games. They play Michigan at home today, at Ohio State next week, and then at Michigan State the week after that. That's probably the toughest three-game stretch any team will play all year. I can't see Penn State winning them all. But they may lose today, but my money would be on next week or the week after. Penn State by 10. Yeah, I think they win at home today. So what game are y'all going to watch today? Or what game are you most excited about today? Anybody think Tennessee scores on Alabama? I do. Alabama defense not as good as Georgia. They're not going to keep Tennessee out of the end zone. Tennessee hasn't scored since the first half of the UMass game. Shut out by Georgia. No touchdowns against South Carolina. No touchdowns in the second half of the UMass game. Alabama defense just not that good, though. Bama defense pretty average. I agree, Tomahawk. Mississippi State beating Kentucky. Yeah, I want to watch that one, too. Kentucky fans are loud. Kentucky fans just automatically assume that the Georgia-Kentucky game is going to determine the East. I don't think that's the case. I think Kentucky loses today and at least one more time before they ever even come to Athens. Georgia pretty much wrap up the East today if Kentucky loses. I mean, not mathematically, but in all reality, it would be very hard for Georgia to lose the East if Kentucky loses today. Georgia and Bama in the SEC championship game, yeah, I don't really see any other possibility at this point. Bama 51, Georgia 14. I'm willing to bet any amount of money you want to bet that's nowhere near the score. Bama's not beating Georgia by 35 points or however much that was you just put. That's no way. Bama won't score 51 on Georgia, period. Does Bama lose points in the poll? Probably not the AP poll. If they let Tennessee score, no. But if they don't look impressive today, they're going to lose points in the UNCLELOU poll. Fire Gus. I don't think y'all are firing Gus. If you lose to Georgia and Alabama, maybe, which that's looking like a pretty good possibility at this point. If you lose to Georgia and Alabama, what does that put you at, 8-4? And that would be 4 years in a row Auburn lost to Georgia and Alabama. So, yeah, they may fire Gus if that happens. Florida loses today. Get beat by the bye week. Why no Adam Anderson video? Well, he committed so late at night, and it wasn't a live commitment. He pre-recorded a video, which wasn't that big of a secret. Most people knew he had committed to Georgia and had recorded that video, so I just didn't see really the need in doing a live video for that. But I'm very excited about Adam Anderson. He's the #2 rated linebacker in the country. He's a 4-star, but the people that I listen to and the people that I trust about recruiting, because I've told you guys before, I'm not a recruiting expert. I don't follow these high school kids' careers and all that kind of stuff. I have a handful of guys that I trust with that kind of thing, and I get my information from them. And those guys tell me that Adam Anderson will be a 5-star pretty soon. And he's already rated as the #2 linebacker in America, so it's hard to believe he's not a 5-star already. But they think he'll be a 5-star before this season is over. I want your spinning helmet in the background. I got that for Christmas, I think last Christmas. But you can order them, and they're not that expensive. I think it's Hover Helmet. The name of it is Hover Helmet, Hover helmet. And I think the website is just hoverhelmet.com. But they're around $100. I think it was like $89.99 or something like that. But yeah, they're pretty cool. Fire Butch. That seems to be the general consensus, is that Butch Jones is getting fired tomorrow. So y'all go ahead and get your official picks in now. Who is Tennessee hiring if they fire Butch tomorrow? Do they announce a hire right away? In other words, are they going to hire somebody who's currently not a coach and go ahead and announce that right away, or do they wait till the end of the season to announce the new coach? Y'all tell me what y'all think's going to happen. Who's replacing him? When's it going to get announced? I see a lot of John Gruden. I don't think it's going to be John Gruden. I hope it's John. As a Georgia fan, I hope it's John Gruden. I hope Tennessee goes out and hires a guy who has never been a head coach in college football and who hasn't been a coach at all in a decade. I really hope they do that. It would be a complete disaster if they hire John Gruden, and I really hope they do that, but I don't think they're going to hire John Gruden. Lane Kiffin, I think there's too much water under that bridge. Peyton Manning, no. Chip Kelly, I think, is a possibility. I also would not be mad if they hired Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly will not, his offense won't work in the SEC. It just won't. It's been proven. When he was at Oregon scoring 60 and 70 points a game, every time he played a legitimate SEC team, he struggled to score 20. And you got to remember, when Chip Kelly started that offense at Oregon 10 years ago, it was new. Everybody runs that hurry-up offense now, so you're not catching people surprised or off guard like Chip Kelly was doing 10 years ago at Oregon. I don't think Chip Kelly would be successful at Tennessee, so I wouldn't mind if they hired him. I saw somebody say Mike Bobo, and that name is actually starting to pick up a little bit of steam. Now, I do not want Mike Bobo to get hired at Tennessee for a couple of reasons. Number one, I like Mike Bobo, and number two, he'll score points without question. Say what you want about Tennessee, but it's going to be a lot harder to enjoy Tennessee failing with Mike Bobo there, for me anyway, than it is with anybody else. I'm not saying Mike Bobo can come into Tennessee and win the East every year or anything like that, but Mike Bobo will score points regardless of what you think about Mike Bobo. We were breaking records. SEC records the last few years. Mike Bobo was the offensive coordinator at Georgia. The guy's an offensive genius. I'm pretty sure he has scored the most amount of points on Alabama all year, Mike Bobo. So just let that sink in. They scored 23 on Alabama. Colorado State did. Good morning. Somebody say good morning there. Hire General Valtard. That would probably be the best hire Tennessee could make, would be to hire the general. I can tell you from a source very, very close to me that the general has not even been contacted at this point. Bobo's a great recruiter, but genius is a stretch. Well, he was averaging 45 points a game in the SEC. And like I said, he scored more points on Alabama this year than anybody else. So. The only reason I want Alabama to win, I missed it, scrolled too fast. You pulling for Notre Dame? Yeah, I think it would look good for Georgia for Notre Dame to get a big win. I mean, Notre Dame is top 10 in the UNCLELOU poll, but they're not getting much respect in the AP poll. So I'm a little bit tired of people saying, no, Notre Dame. Now, look, typically, yeah, Notre Dame is way overrated. I don't think they're overrated this year. They're ranked 13th in the AP poll, and I don't think there's 12 or 13 teams in America right now that are better than Notre Dame. Southern Cal, for instance. Southern Cal is ranked ahead of Notre Dame in the AP poll. Southern Cal is 11th. Notre Dame is 13. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think Notre Dame beats Southern Cal today and will finally get some respect nationally and move into everyone else's top 10. They're already in mine. But yeah, it would look good, for UGA, for Notre Dame to win today. And it's at home for Notre Dame. I think they get the win today. Where'd you get the Walker jersey? I ordered that Walker jersey. I bought that Herschel Walker jersey off of eBay about 15 years ago. Long time ago. 15 years? No, maybe 12 years ago. Around 2005 or so, I bought that Herschel Walker jersey off of eBay, and then I had the frame custom made at a frame shop here in town. Penn State or Michigan? I think Penn State wins. It would be obvious, if it would be better for Georgia, I guess, if Penn State lost. Georgia can move up. But I think Penn State wins today. Did I send your hat, Lou? Yeah, the hat and the shirt were ordered yesterday. The jersey, whoever won the jersey, if you're watching, it's going to take a little bit longer for you to get your jersey than the person that gets the hat and the shirt, but it's all been taken care of. Auburn or not? Yeah, I think Auburn wins today. Arkansas is just a disaster. I think it'll be a little bit closer maybe than some people think. I don't think Auburn blows them out, but I think Auburn wins, 7 to 14 points, something like that. I could be wrong. Auburn may blow them out, but I think that might be a close game. Can Tennessee beat Vandy? Nothing I've seen this year leads me to believe that Tennessee can beat Vanderbilt this year, or Kentucky. What was the first Georgia thing I ever got? Oh, I have no idea. No clue. I can tell you the first Georgia jersey I ever got was Terrence Edwards. Texas A&M will give Auburn trouble. I agree with that. It wouldn't surprise me at all for Texas A&M to beat Auburn. Where's that game at? I can't remember. Can Florida win out? No. They have to play Georgia. They're not winning that game. I think Butch Jones is getting fired tomorrow. Yeah, that's seeming more and more likely. Tennessee will beat Alabama. I don't see it. I mean, look, there's weird upsets and stuff that happen every year. I don't see it happening in the Tennessee-Alabama game. It's not just because Alabama is better. I mean, look, who's better, Oklahoma or Iowa State? Oklahoma. Who's better, Clemson or Syracuse? Clemson. So, yeah, these upsets happen, but Syracuse isn't a dumpster fire where 90% of the fan base is trying to run the coach out of town and players are quitting and fighting in the locker room. Iowa State, not a dumpster fire where people are trying to run the coach out of town, players are quitting and fighting in the locker room and at practice. Tennessee is literally imploding from the inside out, and I just don't see any way Tennessee even keeps this game close. Although if for some reason they do, then there'll be some great videos around 7:30 or 8 o'clock tonight. I can promise you that. Les Miles. I've heard Les Miles. I've heard Scott Frost. I've heard Mike Bobo. I've heard, obviously, Chip Kelly and John Gruden. Who else? I mean, T. Martin. They think they're getting Peyton Manning. I mean, we'll see. Alabama 100 or nothing. I don't think it'll be quite that bad. toughest games you have on schedule coming up, Florida and Auburn. Florida and Auburn are the only 2 games left on our schedule that concern me even a little bit. We get South Carolina at home. We'll win that game without a problem. We get Kentucky at home. We'll win that game without a problem. We get Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and we've actually beat them more regularly in Atlanta over the last 5 or 6 years than we have in Athens. I don't think Georgia Tech will be able to run on us like they do some other teams. I'm not worried about that game. Florida and Auburn are the only 2 teams left on our schedule that are anywhere even close to having the ability to beat Georgia. I don't think either one of those teams will beat Georgia, but those are the only 2 games where it wouldn't shock me, I guess, if we lost one of those 2 games to Florida and Auburn. I don't see it happening. If we lost to any other team on our schedule this year, I would lose my mind. No, I'm not necessarily concerned with Florida. I think we'll win by 21 plus that game. But look, I've seen Georgia take a lot of good teams down to Jacksonville and get beat by average to below average Florida teams. I don't think that's the case this year. Mainly because of the way we've played all year. You know, it's not like we're beating Vanderbilt and Mississippi State and Missouri by 7 to 10 points. I mean, we're absolutely destroying every team we play. So I think this is a different Georgia team than what we've seen in the past. But I've just been a fan too long and seen too many Georgia losses in Jacksonville to just come on here and say, you know, I would be shocked if Florida won. I wouldn't, but I don't see it happening. Yeah, Florida has no offense. I agree. South Carolina or Vandy? Well, they don't play today. They're off. But I think South Carolina wins that game. Yeah, Mark Richt teams, not Kirby. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a difference, and I think it's going to show this year. So, well, you know, we'll find out a week from today. That Mark Richt account, whoever did that that's a good one. The Mark Richt account just said, "I'm glad I moved to the ACC. It's so much easier." Yeah. I still think Miami will lose a game this year that they're not supposed to lose, but we'll see. But I mean, they're undefeated, so what can you say? I mean, it's been a long time since Miami was undefeated this far into the season. Carolina Jackpot says no. I don't know what he's saying no to. But he's a Carolina fan, and y'all are just terrible this year. You already know that, so it just is what it is. Don't argue with me about it. I don't feel like going on another 10-minute rant about South Carolina, so please don't say anything stupid in the comment section that's going to trigger me. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can turn the brightness up on this. I can't hardly read some of these comments. Let me see if I can turn the brightness up. If Georgia wins the SEC, these comments are coming so fast I can't read most of them. Miami going to get Mark Richted sometime this year. I agree with that 100%. Antonio Callaway was an amazing player. He was a good athlete. I don't think he was elite. But he was the best offensive player Florida had, and it hurt Florida to lose those guys. I mean, there's no question about it. Some Florida fans are mad at McElwain and want him fired. I don't see it. Look, I can't think of any team in America that could lose 10% of their scholarship players the week before the season starts and even do as good as Florida has done. So I don't see how you can knock Jim McElwain for the job he's done this year. Georgia 17, Alabama 21. I mean, that's at least a legitimate prediction. The one earlier that said 51-10 or something, no way. But look, if Georgia makes it to Atlanta and loses to Alabama by 4 points, am I going to be happy? No. But it would be hard if we show up in Atlanta 12-0 and lose to Alabama by 4 points, and Alabama goes on to win the national title. it's going to be hard for me to get on here and yell and scream about how mad and disappointed I am. I mean, I'll be disappointed, but most Georgia fans, myself included, going into this season, and I've told y'all before, my goal for Georgia every single year is to win the East and roll the dice in Atlanta. So, now I'm sure right after the game ended, I'd be upset if Georgia lost. Regardless if it was 1 point or 100. I'm sure I would be upset and mad and all those things and, you know, probably make a fool of myself on video. But by the next day, I would calm down, I'm sure, and you know, it wouldn't be the end of the world. What's up, Lou Jr.? Good morning. Lou Jr. just woke up. He sleeps late on the weekends. He probably stayed up all night playing video games. Somebody said something about the Gamecocks having potential, but then getting injuries. Here's about the best thing I can say about South Carolina. For the first couple of games of the year, well, really just the first game of the year, South Carolina looked better than I thought they would look. They beat NC State. I picked NC State to win that game, and NC State hasn't lost a game since then. So that was an impressive win for South Carolina. They beat Missouri, and then they beat one other garbage team. Who was it? Louisiana Tech? But then they lost to Kentucky, and Deebo Samuel went out, and they haven't been the same team without Deebo Samuel. So I get what you're saying with the injuries. But even if you go back to the NC State game, and look, I agree. The only stat really that matters is the scoreboard. I get it. But if you go look at the stats of the NC State game, NC State beat South Carolina in every way imaginable except the scoreboard. I mean, you had, you know, returns for touchdowns by Deebo Samuel. You had some weird things that happened in that game. I just don't think South Carolina is a very good team. So what are they right now? How many games have they lost? 2? So they're 5-2. I think if you asked most South Carolina fans before the season, would you be happy with 5-2, 7 games into the season? I think most of them would have said yeah. Now, of course, once the season gets started and you see the games that you lose and if they're close and all that, then, you know, you change your mind and you're mad and you say, oh, we should have won that game. But look, you haven't had a winning record in 2 years. You're on your way right now probably to getting a winning record this year, even without the bowl game. I could see South Carolina winning 7 games, maybe 8 before the bowl game. You know, you won 3 games 2 years ago. You were 6-7 last year. So if you finish 7-5 or 8-4, and then can win a bowl game and go 8-5 or 9-4, most South Carolina fans would be happy, I think. Did Hines Ward play for Georgia? Yeah, yeah. Who do I want to play in the college football playoff? If I had to pick preseason I picked Southern Cal, Florida State, Ohio State, and the winner of the SEC. Well, Florida State's out. Ohio State still has a chance. I don't think Southern Cal is any good, even though technically they still have a chance to only have 1 loss. I think they take their 2nd loss today. If I had to pick right now who I think is going to make the college football playoff, I would say winner of the SEC. It's really hard right now to pick any other team. I don't think TCU is going to run the table. So I don't know. If TCU or Oklahoma win the Big 12 with only 1 loss, I think they probably get into the playoff. I think if Notre Dame wins out and goes 11-1, they probably get into the playoff. I think Clemson, just because Clemson lost to Syracuse, I don't think that eliminates Clemson. I just don't think Clemson is good enough. I think Clemson is going to lose another game. I just don't think they're good enough to run the table. It's got nothing to do with the fact they lost to Syracuse. So I'm not too sure now if the ACC gets a team in. You might be looking at the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and Notre Dame, maybe? I don't know. It's been a weird season so far. We really need to wait a few more weeks and let some of these teams play each other. Somebody said Easton is transferring. It wouldn't surprise me at all. NC State has a chance against Clemson. I think so too. NC State versus Miami in the ACC championship. It could be. A Michigan fan wants Eason. Yeah, y'all need some offense in Michigan bad. Harbaugh made $11 million last year and can barely get a first down. That's pathetic. What's up, John? Ready? No, Eason won't go to an SEC school. We would block that. We won't let him transfer to an SEC school, I'm sure. My guess with Eason is that he goes back to the West Coast. That's my guess. He's from there. That would be my guess on where he goes. Maybe Miami. All right, later, Jennifer. The game is at A&M. The Auburn A&M game. A&M could win that one. Will Penn State win out? I don't see it. I think Penn State's a good team, a really good team. But I don't know if there's anybody in America who could beat Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State in back-to-back weeks. That includes UGA, that includes Alabama, that includes TCU, Clemson, Oklahoma, whatever team you want to name. I don't think there's a team in America that could win those 3 games in 3 consecutive weeks, and that's what Penn State has to do. They've got to beat Michigan at home today, they've got to beat Ohio State on the road next week, and then they would have to beat Michigan State on the road the week after that, and I don't think anybody could do that, much less Penn State. Some idiot says UJ will lose to Florida, either trolling or never watched football, not sure which. All right, Philip, take it easy, buddy. Thoughts on Justin Fields on being out for the season? I'm not concerned with him being out for the season as far as the injury goes. It's a broken finger. I mean, people can get over that. It may actually end up benefiting Georgia in the long run because I don't know how many of y'all know this or not, but Justin Fields plays baseball too. So he wasn't going to early enroll at Georgia because he was going to play baseball for his high school team in the spring. But with this broken finger, he may not be able to play baseball in the spring, which means he may early enroll now at Georgia, which is good. It gives him a head start. Even if he can't throw the ball in January, the broke finger is still a problem. You know, he can get in the, he can get in the weight room and do some things, film study, playbook stuff. He'll be on campus in January if he decides to enroll early instead of playing baseball. So it could actually end up being a benefit for UGA. I do obviously feel really, really bad for Justin Fields, though. I mean, that sucks. I never want to see anybody get injured, especially a high school kid. So it sucks. But, you know, if you're trying to look glass half full type deal, it's just a broken finger, not the end of the world. And it may end up benefiting UJ in the long run if we can get him to early enroll. South Carolina or Florida, I think that'll be a really, really good game. And that's in South Carolina, right? I think South Carolina can beat them this year. And Florida's season will be over by the time South Carolina plays them because Florida's already got a couple SEC losses. Plus the Michigan loss. So what are they sitting at 3 losses now? We're going to beat them. That's going to put them at 4 losses. They'll be completely out of the SEC East race at that point. So I think South Carolina will have a good chance to beat them. Yeah, Gary or Gray football says Missouri is so bad they're terrible. Definitely one of the worst 2 or 3 teams in the Power 5. What will the top 3 in the SEC East be when the season is over? Georgia. Probably Georgia. Oh man, I think it's Georgia, and then after that you've got Florida, South Carolina, and Kentucky. Florida's already beat Kentucky. South Carolina and Florida still have to play, so it's hard to say the order there. If I had to pick right now, though, I would probably go Georgia. Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina. Mark Rick wants to let everyone know he's having a Bible study later today. All right, thanks, Coach. Peyton Manning to Tennessee. Yep. Whatever you say. Adam says Kirby is a top 3 recruiter in the country. I don't think anybody would argue that. The guy is getting it done on the recruiting trail. Peyton Manning is a coach. That'd be awesome to see. I don't understand the infatuation with... Here, look. This is what I hear Tennessee fans say all the time. We're Tennessee. We're a top 10 program. You know, the head coach job at Tennessee is a top 10 job. We're Tennessee. We've got the money, and we can get anybody we want. We can go out. If you can get anybody you want, why do you want a guy that's never coached? Why would you want Peyton Manning? That makes no sense at all. None. Look, just because somebody is a good football player, whether it's quarterback or anything else, doesn't automatically mean they're going to be a good coach. I mean, I don't understand about John Gruden either. John Gruden was not even that good of a coach in the NFL. He really had 1 or 2 good years in the NFL. That was it. He's never been a head coach in college, and he hasn't been a coach at all anywhere for 10 years. I don't get it. We're Tennessee. We can get anybody we want. We can get a big-name elite head coach. Well, then why are you talking about John Gruden and Peyton Manning and T. Martin and even Chip Kelly? I don't understand. If you can get anybody you want, then go out and get anybody you want. Don't get one of these leftover scrubs and then tell me, but we're Tennessee. I had a Voltard yesterday tell me Tennessee's got more money than any other college in America, and that's the only thing that's the only thing that's been holding us back is spending big money on a big coach. That's all you need. Well, look at Michigan. Michigan's got just as much money as you do, Tennessee. They're a top 10 program nationally and historically. They paid Jim Harbaugh $11 million last year. This guy can't even get a first down, and Michigan has never even won their division. So it's not just about paying somebody a ton of money. It's got to be the right guy and the right fit for the job. So, I mean, I don't know. My gut feeling is they're going to end up with somebody that most people aren't talking about. Somebody that's not named John Gruden. And Tennessee fans are going to pretend to be happy about it. And then 2 or 3 years down the road, they're going to be blaming Butch Jones for why this new coach is winning 5 and 6 games a year. It's going to be the same damn thing we've seen over and over again from Tennessee fans since 2008. Blame the previous coach. Eventually, Tennessee fans got to wake up and realize, what are the odds that 4 coaches in a row suck and don't know what they're doing? Or is Tennessee just the new South Carolina? And, you know, the top of the mountain for Tennessee now is a good year every 4 or 5 years and a New Year's Day bowl. I mean, it could be that Tennessee is just an 8 or 9 win program and an Outback Bowl is the top of the mountain. That could be what we're looking at with Tennessee here. I mean, that's a possibility.
Obviously, Florida State battle royal to me, and Georgia Tech battle royal to me. You know, we're not lining up just with people and having these margins of victory that are really comfortable.
Do I think Bret Bielema will get fired? I think he should get fired. I keep hearing how everyone loves him and the AD loves him and he's such a likable guy, and you know, listen, that's great. That doesn't make you a good coach. And he's not just losing, they're getting embarrassed. I mean, if they go out today and lose to Auburn by 30 or 40 points, how do you justify keeping him for another year? In the Auburn and A&M series, the home team has never won. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, I guess it is good for Auburn that they're playing at A&M then. Look at your TV, Lou. Well, the comments are probably behind where the TV is. Would you add any more teams to the SEC? I think teams are going to get... I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up with 4 super conferences of 16 teams each. 16. There's already 14 in the SEC, so you don't have a lot of room for expansion. I think we're going to expand west, which would mean Oklahoma, maybe one of the Texas schools, not Texas though, but one of the other Texas schools maybe, in Oklahoma. And I think we're going to expand to the northeast. Virginia Tech, West Virginia, one of the North Carolina teams, something like that. That would be my guess. I don't think if the Big 12 implodes, well, not if, when the Big 12 implodes, I don't think Texas will join another conference. I think Texas will go independent. If they do join a conference, I think it would be the Pac-12. Nick Chubb first round or no? I don't think so. I think second round. I mean, I could be wrong. You really got to wait until the NFL season is over and see which teams are drafting in which spot and things like that. I actually think Sony Michel is a better NFL prospect than Nick Chubb. A lot of Georgia fans get mad at me when I say that. It's not a knock against Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's going to finish his career at Georgia as the #2 all-time leading rusher in the history of the SEC. I love Nick Chubb. But, you know, good in college and good in NFL, not necessarily the same thing. I think Sony Michel skill set transfers better to the NFL. Sony Michel can play on all 3 downs in the NFL. Nick Chubb is going to be a first and second down running back in the NFL. You're not going to see Nick Chubb out there catching passes on 3rd down in the NFL, whereas Sony Michel can play all 3 downs, line up in the slot, return kicks. I think he gives more value to an NFL team than Chubb does. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see Sony Michel get drafted higher than Chubb. And that's not something I've just started saying this year. I actually was saying this last year. I thought they were both going to leave last year after their junior year, and I was saying the same thing. Sony Michel will probably get drafted higher than Chubb. Again, it's going to depend on which teams draft where and who needs what and what type of offenses they run and things like that. But it wouldn't surprise me if a career backup at UGA, Sony Michel, gets drafted ahead of the #2 all-time leading rusher in the SEC, Nick Chubb. It wouldn't surprise me at all. If UGA loses the SEC championship game and Notre Dame only has 1 loss, I didn't see the end of that. But look, I argued with somebody about this on Facebook the other day. It's not that I don't think UGA would deserve to get into the playoff if they lose the SEC championship game. I don't think the committee is going to put the loser of a conference championship game into the playoff. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think they look at these conference championship games as the first round of a playoff. Now, the Notre Dame angle is interesting because what if Notre Dame runs the table and ends up 11-1? Georgia goes undefeated with a close loss to Alabama in the SEC championship game. So Georgia would finish 12-1 with a close loss to the #1 team in America. Notre Dame would be 11-1 with a close loss to Georgia. How could they justify putting Notre Dame into the playoff but not Georgia if that happened? A lot of ways to go to get to that point. That would be an interesting scenario to see how they would handle that. I just find it hard to believe that the committee would put a team that loses a conference championship game into the playoff. I feel like they look at the conference championship game as the first round of the playoffs. With that being said, though, if a couple other of these conferences knock themselves out, if Clemson takes another loss in the regular season, for example, but still makes the ACC championship game and wins the ACC championship game with 2 losses, I don't think a 2-loss team would get in over a 1-loss Georgia, even if Georgia loses the championship game. So there's a lot of different angles and ways to look at that. The only chance I think the loser of the SEC championship game has of getting into the playoff would be if there's not 3 more 1-loss teams. In other words, the winner of the ACC has 2 losses, or the winner of the Big 12 has 2 losses, or the winner of the Big 10 had 2 losses, whatever, something like that. Then I could see it happening. The problem you run into then is, what position do they put UGA in? Let's say Georgia loses to Alabama in a close game, and Georgia's ranked #2 when they play that game. Where are they going to drop Georgia to? #4? Well, that means Georgia and Alabama then play again in the first round of the play. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. If Georgia goes 12-0 and barely loses to Alabama, then I think Georgia at that point is definitely one of the best 4 teams in the country. So if that's the goal of the playoff committee, is to put the best 4 teams in America into the playoff, then I think a 1-loss UGA should get in at that point. I'm just not convinced the committee will do that. But we'll see. Doesn't really matter, though. Really, you need to be having this conversation about Alabama, not about Georgia. When Georgia beats Alabama, do they put Alabama in anyway, is the conversation that you need to be having. What do I think of Harbaugh at Michigan? I think he's way overpaid. The guy made $11 million last year. He's been there 3 years, hasn't even won his division, never beat Ohio State. 3 years in, you've got no quarterback, you've got no playmakers on offense. Yeah, you've got an elite defense, but that's just not enough. You've got to be able to do something on offense. Florida has had an elite defense the last couple of years. At least they were able to win their division, but what happened when they faced an elite team? They got blown out because they had no offense. Same thing with Michigan. Even if Michigan somehow were to win the Big 12 this year, or the Big 10 this year and make the playoff, Michigan's not beating any of the top 5 or 6 teams because they won't be able to score.
We all grow up, but you might say my head's still in the clouds. Because at Colt, my team and I dream up new technologies to make cars more aerodynamic.
Kentucky will beat Mississippi State. I don't think so. I picked Mississippi State to win. It's at home for Mississippi State. Mississippi State, a much better team at home than they are on the road. A lot of cowbell, plenty of cowbell. And I don't think Kentucky's a good team. I know they're 5-1 or whatever they are. They've only won one game by more than a touchdown, and that was by 11 points to some crappy team. I can't remember now. I had it written down, but you know, they barely beat Eastern Michigan. They barely beat Eastern Kentucky. They barely beat Missouri. Those were all one-score games. I don't know. I just think Mississippi State gets the win today against Kentucky. Yeah, cowbells over Kentucky. I agree. I mean, I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think it'll be a good game, but I think Mississippi State wins it at home. John Gruden won Super Bowl 37 with the Bucks. Yeah, I mean, that was, what, 13 years ago? I mean, that was a long time ago. The guy hasn't coached a game in a decade, been sitting in a booth calling games, Spider, Y, Banana, 2 Banana, and all that, running quarterback camps. I mean, if Tennessee wants to give that guy a shot, I'm all for it because, it would take him at least 2 or 3 years just to get adjusted to the college game. I don't think he would be successful. Just because even if you're really, really good in the NFL, doesn't mean you'll be good in college. So I'm not, but I don't think they're getting Gruden anyway. So I think it's a waste of time to talk about it. But the only reason I even bring it up is because I think it's hilarious that Tennessee fans love John Gruden and think he's going to come in and go 30-0 every single season. I just don't get it. Do I think Butch gets fired off the Bama game? Yeah, I do. I said all year long I didn't think Butch was getting fired, and if he did, it would be at the very end of the year. But the wheels have just completely come off. He hasn't scored a touchdown in 10 quarters, shut out by UGA at home, lost to South Carolina for the whatever time in a row, never beat Will Muschamp, about to get killed by Alabama today. The season's over halfway gone, and he has 0 SEC wins. There's no way you can keep him around anymore. Who would Georgia's quarterback be next year, Fromm or Eason? I have a feeling it'll be Fromm with a little bit of Justin Fields sprinkled in. How's LSU doing? Not good. I mean, they've turned it around a little bit since that loss to Troy. They beat, what, Florida? And then they beat Auburn. I still don't think they're a very good team. Scott Frost or Justin Fuente. I love both those coaches. I would not want Tennessee to get either one of those coaches. Who can save Tennessee's football program? No one. Yeah, I'm going to show the TV like that. If YouTube flags this video or whatever, then I'll just know in the future I can't do that. We'll see. Is Fromm better than Stafford? No. Come on. Fromm has started 6 college games. Matthew Stafford is a top 5 quarterback on planet Earth. So, I mean, come on. I'm a Fromm fan, but come on. Any chance Eason goes to Florida? No. Josh Dobbs for Tennessee coaching job. That's a good comment to end on. I will do videos today whenever I need to with the games. Not really any good games at noon. A couple of good ones at 3:30. Of course, Tennessee, Alabama. The Kentucky-Mississippi State game, I think, is at 4. And then 2 good games tonight. Southern Cal at Notre Dame. Michigan at Penn State. So I'll do some reaction videos for you guys during the day today with these games. Thanks for watching Game Day Live with Uncle Lou. I almost burped on you there, but I didn't. I almost did, though. What y'all think about this hat, though? It's my driving Miss Daisy hat. Anyway, have a great day and an even better morning. If you can.